Hello and welcome to the latest from Hearts Standard. My name is Joel Sked and I'm delighted to be joined on this occasion by Tom Irving as we look at the first January signing of the window, and that is Elton Kabangu. Before we get into that, how's it going, Tom?
I'm not too bad, just absolutely freezing, but I'll survive. How are you doing?
Yes. Oh, I'm the same. I've just been outside walking a dog we're looking after, and it's perishing. I've been wearing my hat, woolly hat in the house, with 3 jumpers on, and the heating's been turned up full blast. But that's me. I am a massive S bag. I've let you finish the rest of that. That remark that I see myself as. Like I said, we are here to discuss Elton Kabangu. He has had his work permit granted. Of course, he was the first signing off the window when he arrived on January 1st on loan from Union Saint-Gilloise. There is an option to make the deal permanent at the end of the loan. That was confirmed by USG. Hearts were trying to push through the paperwork, the clearance of work permit before the Motherwell game. It didn't quite come through, and then it's been delayed with Kabangu's having us out the Dundee United one on Sunday, but it's all through now, and he should be in line to feature, perhaps not start, but feature against Aberdeen at Pittodrie on Sunday in the Scottish Premiership. Before we get into it all, I of course have a message from our sponsors, which are Good Vibes Giveaways, and if I've got the right email, who are proud to sponsor Hearts Standard and offer fantastic prizes to fans of the club. Prizes change weekly and include tech gadgets, days out, weekends away, tax-free cash, and even OASIS tickets. Get your tickets now at www.goodvibesgiveaways.com and enter for your chance to spread the good vibes. Now, Hearts fans will be hoping that it's all good vibes from Kabangu. Tom, I've got you on because you wrote an excellent article looking at what you expect Kabangu to bring to the Hearts starting 11 and how he fits in, and looking at him both at USG and his previous, probably more successful spell in the Dutch second tier at the Willem II. What were your, before we get into kind of the details of his strengths and weaknesses and the process of looking at him, what were your initial thoughts when you saw that Hearts were linked to him? And the kind of first thing I think he did was put up one of the kind of stats radars. What did that tell you?
Yeah, so he wasn't really a player that I'd been aware of prior to hearing his name a week, 2 weeks ago, whenever it first came out. I think there's been this a little bit of kind of doubt in some Hearts fans' minds because it's another Tony Bloom or Jamestown Analytics related club, and there's that kind of skepticism of, are we just a feeder team or what have you? But I see it totally different. I see it, he's been identified as being a standout and able to make that move up. He's not quite made the move up to USG standard, but I think they're not a popular name like you have with Club Brugge or maybe Genk or what have you, or Anderlecht. But right now they are one of the biggest clubs in Belgian football. They are they're probably the most historic and oldest club, like the really historic club, and they have come a long way in the last few years to push and become one of the top 2-3 teams in the nation. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. I think they're still going to be one of the biggest clubs in a league that is much better than Scotland. So the fact that he's not made the step up to USG isn't a huge negative. And there's quite a few players in front of him in that USG team who are, like millions and millions of pounds worth players. There's some players that are absolutely fantastic that are playing in his position, unfortunately for him, which is one of the benefits of the Jamestown Analytics type stuff. And I guess the fact that they found so many good players has worked out for us as well, because we've got one of their, rejects, I guess we would call him. But I don't think he's going to be a reject for us anyway.
Yeah, just on that, because it's something you sent me. I didn't put it in the article. but it was I'll put it up on the screen now. It was basically the rankings of how the Belgian teams compare to the Scottish teams, and then you look at it. So Club Brugge and Celtic are at the very top, and then the third team above Anderlecht, above Ghent, above Rangers is Union Saint-Gilloise. So that it kind of just highlights their kind of global rank, how they are viewed, and essentially out of their class, if they were to class the Belgian leagues and the Scotland League all together, Union Saint-Gilloise would be the third best team behind Celtic, but in front of Anderlecht and the likes of Rangers. Hearts, for context, are down in like 20th out of that list. So that is just kind of prove your view that it was a big jump up from Willem II to Union Saint-Gilloise, and then he's dropping down in terms of level, and then to Hearts, where he could probably have more of an impact. Now, looking at his time at USG, is it fair to say that he was used? Well, he didn't play that much, but he didn't really get a run in his favoured position, because when there was talk of him, he can play wide. He can certainly play from the left, I think, but you view him as strictly a number 9.
Yeah. I feel like he's going to come in and play strictly as a number 9 for Hearts. I think he could play in either of those wide positions, kind of like what Musa does. More what Musa does than what kind of Spittle or someone on the left would do. But I think we'd be wasting him if we play him out wide. He's very much does a lot of his work off the ball, his movement, his positioning, and his kind of instinct for being exactly where you need to be to score goals. That's what's best about him, not his touch, his amazing creativity or anything like that. That's not what we should expect from him. He's not going to drop deep and be a really creative player, creating lots of chances, finding these incredible killer passes. He's going to be that player who doesn't touch the ball for a little while, then will get into that perfect position for an easy chance, hopefully, if we can feed him well, which is kind of one of my doubts that I mentioned in the article, is we've kind of struggled to find those balls in the past. It's not a new thing. We're starting to do it with Wilson now. That goal, both his goals at Ross County were exactly the kind of goals that I can see Elton scoring. But it's a role that we've struggled with in the past. Like I mentioned in the article with Tagawa, I think, even though he wasn't successful at Hearts, I think he's a pretty good player for what he does. It's just he needs him to be in a team that plays to his strengths, and we played to the strengths of a player like Shanklin, and it's the exact opposite type of centre forward. So when Tagawa came on, we really struggled to get into the mindset of playing with this different type of striker. Now, well, just because I guess Shanklin's out injured, we're seeing Wilson leading the line, and I'm all for that continuing, and him or Kabangu kind of mixing in who starts and who comes off the bench. And if Shanklin is to come back a little bit fit anytime soon, I would be more inclined to play him in the 10, mix up with him and Boyce potentially, because I think that's more his position nowadays. And if we're really looking for those like line breaking runs and stuff, it's not something Shanklin's ever really done, and I think he could admit that himself. He doesn't have the assets for that, I don't think. So obviously it's going to be a horses for courses type of thing, and Shanklin's a brilliant number 9 in his own right. But it's very much who are we playing against and what kind of striker we're looking for on the day, I suppose.
Do you see, and I think is that key? Do you reckon that obviously Shanklin's out for a few weeks, and the fact that even if he was fit, there's certainly a reason. Well, I would say it'd be very harsh to drop Liam Boyce, considering how the impact he's had. Is it a case where you're having to play Shanklin as basically a strictly number 10 rather than a front pin, where or can you see Kabangu and, like, for example, Shanklin playing as kind of dual 9s, or is it best that Kabangu is the number 9 and Shanklin essentially works in as a number 10?
I think it would work either way, to be honest. I think Kabangu would really benefit from someone like Shanklin up front, but I feel like I don't know if it's the coaching in the last couple of years or Shanklin's mindset himself, but he seems to be kind of withdrawing from being that strict number 9 that I think when he came into the team at first, he was really much a poacher, a ball, a goal scoring centre forward who didn't. He's always had good build up play, but I don't think he was involved, and now he's kind of straying away from that. Just wanting to score goals and trying to be heavily involved, moving more into trying to be heavily involved in build up and stuff. If we could kind of get that old school number 9 style back into him, I think it would be really good playing as a partner with someone like either Wilson or Kabangu. But I guess that's up to Critchley and how he wants to coach him, how he sees him playing. But yeah, I think there's lots of options. Either Shanklin or Boyce sitting on that number 10, even Jorge George Grant number 10, Spittle even in that number 10. We could play 2 up front. We've now got multiple strikers where for a while it felt like we only had Shanklin. We now have 3, maybe 4 strikers if you include Boyce there. That can add something to our team up top. So yeah, we're much less limited on options up the top of the park, and I can see Shanklin not being an automatic starter now. Gordon has kind of come on and taken that captaincy back off of Shanklin as well, so I don't think it's a case of he's our captain and he needs to play anymore. I don't know if this has been spoken about, but I don't know who's going to be taking the captain's armband going forward, if Gordon's going to keep it. But yeah, I feel like it's very much Gordon's, and Shanklin's is back to being a player, not captain.
I would still reckon that if Shanklin comes back, it would be if he starts, I would think he'd probably take it back. Okay. But yeah, that's an interesting one to see. Raymond says, with Kabangu coming in, do you think the club would entertain any bids before the window closes, or does Shanklin stay until end of the season? I think the club would entertain any bids for kind of any player as long as it reaches their valuation. I'm not really sure what the valuation of Shanklin is now with him entering the final 6 months of his deal. Plus, he's going to be out injured for the majority of the window. That could impact things. But I certainly don't think it's a case of because Kabangu's come in that Shanklin will go. Like you said, 2 very different types of strikers that you need someone, if Shanklin was to go, you need someone else to come in. Now, Tom, you looked into Kabangu, and I'll ask about the process of that just in a minute, but I'm going to put up some stats that you gathered from his time at Willem II. I'm sure so I've put them up on screen, so apologies if you're listening to us on a podcast, but there's a lot of green there, which always tells me that's encouraging. Am I right in saying this is from Willem II, and kind of what does this graph, for those who are watching, kind of tell us about Kabangu?
Yeah. So the general kind of idea when you're looking at the data, you want a bigger sample size than I think he played at USG. I think he played something like 500 minutes over 1.5 seasons, so which is not enough, and especially if there are late sub appearances and stuff, it's not enough data and good data to show what kind of player he really is. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I looked at his time at Willem. It's a hard one. We've not seen a huge amount of success in Scotland coming from players from that level. I would say it's a pretty similar level. It's just a different type of different kind of type of game played there. You'll be used to playing in front of massive stadiums and lots of fans and stuff, lots of noisy fans in that level. So I don't think he's going to be too scared, coming to the likes of some of the Scottish stadiums. So it's not going to be a worry from that step up for me. But yeah, so I looked into majority of the stuff. So like I said earlier, I think a lot of his good positives are the stuff off the ball and the stuff that you can't really measure with this kind of stats. And initially, before I looked into this, so I watched him first, then looked into his data, and then wrote the article. So when I watched him first, I thought it made me think differently about the Jamestown analytics and really how deep they go into stuff like movement, positioning stuff, which I think they could bring into their calculations or whatever you want to call it. But then when I looked into this, I was like, oh, maybe there's not as much to it. But I still think they could go, well, they definitely do go much deeper than anything I'm capable of. Unfortunately for me, I'm not that intelligent. So what we see is, from an attacking point of view, I look at the non-penalty goals quite a lot with strikers because, well, what would Hibs fans calling Shanklin Penland? I think they were calling him, even though he wasn't scoring that many penalties. But I like to look at the non-penalty goals, and he was scoring that. So that's, if you look at the numbers there, that's the actual data, and the bars show the percentile which he sits in comparison to the rest of the league. So he was scoring a goal every 0.58 games, or 0.58 goals per game, which is brilliant. His XG per 90 is 0.46, so he's doing better than his XG. So he's scoring more than he's expected to, which is always good. That usually kind of shows a good finisher potentially. I added in the head goals per 90. I don't usually add in head goals per 90, but considering he looks like a player who is going to get on the end of crosses and be a kind of, a danger in the box, more than someone who kind of creates his own chances and scores goals from outside the box and such. I wanted to see, does he rank well with scoring with his head? And he did, which is good. His goal conversion is around 23%. I can't remember what Shanklin's was last year. I think it was around that mark too. But if you look at comparison to the rest of the league, he's pretty high up there in the top kind of 18% of players or strikers. So he's not just shooting a lot, he's actually scoring a lot of his chances, which is good. Which also kind of reflects with his expected goals, his goals being better than his expected goals. I don't know if we're going to see a huge amount of assists from, but he did pretty well when it came to providing assists at Willem. When we look at the shot assists, so shot assists are the final pass before someone takes a shot. So basically, who played the ball to the person that gets a chance predominantly. Didn't fare too greatly there, but it's not one I really heavily look at. But it can sometimes show a kind of creative player, a player who's really effective in the final third in a creative sense. So going further down, his shots and the shots on target, he's shooting a lot, and he's got a really, really good accuracy. 54% of his shots hit the target. Now, sometimes that could be a bad thing. Can't remember who it was. I think it was maybe Oda when I first looked at Oda. His shot accuracy was amazing, but 90% of the time it was right down the goalie's right in front of the goalie or what have you. So sometimes a poor shot accuracy can almost be better because they're finding the corners and narrowly missing, or they're hitting the post or something. But he's clearly scoring the goals and he's hitting the target a lot, which is good. And the last two attacking metrics, so accelerations per 90 is a metric that we look at for fast dribbles with the ball, basically. I found that was looking at dribbles, quite a lot of time dribbles can be just like a centre back, touching it forward a couple of times, and that counts as a dribble. So I try and look at accelerations a little bit more. And he seems to run fast with the ball quite a lot. And then finally, touches in the box. He's getting a lot of touches in the box. He's one of the, I think it's top 3 or 4 for an amount of touches in the box, which kind of backs up what I said earlier. He's not going to be someone who creates and stays wide and tries to beat players down the wing and get balls in the box. I think he's going to be more number 9, get the ball into his feet and have him finish first time, or take a touch and finish, or what have you.
And I suppose I'll remove that just now. And I suppose something that you talk about what Jamestown can do, it can go in deeper in depth. And one thing that noticed from yourself was it was almost like from your article that you wrote about him was he is pretty handy outside of possession as well, as on a kind of defensive forward as well. Like he'll basically work his arse off.
Yeah, and it's from what I saw, it wasn't just chasing for the sake of it. He wasn't just sprinting at people and with no purpose. It was quite calculated and pushing players towards certain areas and actually doing something out of possession instead of looking busy. He was actually intelligently chasing the players and pressing players and stuff, which is something that it's pretty useful, and it's not something that's going to show up in stats. It's not like it's going to be his defensive stats there that you had on the screen weren't anything incredible, but again, I don't think it will be. We'll probably get some good data from StatsBomb after a few games, I think, but it will probably be the stuff that he does that leads to the opposition losing the ball, opposed to actually winning the ball himself, which we don't really see that data on Wisecout. And I wouldn't have access to his StatsBomb data from those leagues. But yeah, I think that he could show up really well in causing turnovers, but not actually being the person who wins a turnover himself, if that makes sense.
And just before I bring in a couple of questions just to finish off, are you just kind of overall, are you excited or encouraged by his signing rather than concerned?
No, I'm excited, and I honestly think he's one of these players. So it'll either go one way or the other. It'll be, does he fit the Scottish game or does he not? We've got to trust that Jamestown Analytics have done their homework. Well, you hope so anyway. And hopefully he's going to fit the Scottish game and fit how Critchley wants to play. But on the other hand, a player that's on the fringes of the USG's first team and getting minutes here and there, it sounds bad because I know quite a lot of fans aren't probably familiar with USG as well as some of the other teams, but I don't think we would have got him if we didn't have this connection to Jamestown and Tony Bloom and stuff. I think he might have been above what we would have been looking at. If it wasn't for that connection, I think he would have probably went somewhere potentially a little bit higher standard, what they would think is a higher standard. I think we benefited from this connection with Jamestown in this situation, thankfully. But I guess we'll see if it all works out.
No, I'm excited because I think the last two games he's seen with Wilson, again, I don't think he's been really, really good. And Craig mentioned him in analysis article that went out this morning just about how important he was in the win over Dundee United, even though he wasn't getting chances. Him and Boyce have done really well, and again, going to Aberdeen neither deserve to be dropped. But you saw against Motherwell and you saw against Dundee United, it'd be big to have Kabangu, that option off the bench, and then just to so like if Wilson's tired, then you've got this guy who's rapid, who's a bit of an unknown that the Aberdeen defence going to have to deal with. That's exciting for me going into the game on Sunday. And just to Chris White asked on Facebook, why did Elton Kabangu struggle at USG? Kind of talked about that at the start of the video, just that it was a big jump up from this second tier in the Netherlands to a team who are basically always trying to get into or the Champions League or competing for the Belgian the top flight. So the competition within there that is basically just not being able to make an impact, which has allowed Hearts and that kind of connection to come in and offer him a chance to rekindle his form that got him the move to USG.
And I feel like just quickly as well before you go on to the next question, the players that are ahead of him in that USG squad, they're the kind of players that like your Celtics and Rangers would be looking to sign and be big players for them. They're not bad players that are ahead of them. They're top quality players worth 3, 4, 5 million. You know, so it's not like he's getting kept out of the team by someone rubbish or anything. He's getting kept out of the team by absolutely top quality players.
And the last one is nothing to do with Kabangu, but Robbie Mackay asked, he'll mainly play. I see we're in for winger in Swiss League Declan Frith. Any thought on the Frith link? This is the first I have heard of it or seen of it. Just looking on his transfer market, I would suggest that it would cost a fair bit of money because he's under contract to FC Thun for 2020 until 2027, and they have an option to make it to 2028. So it's not one I've heard of, but it's one I will certainly look into, and he's been playing quite often in the Swiss top flight and has scored 6 goals in 16 appearances. So
he's only just joined in the summer as well. So
yeah,
it'd be.
I would be surprised. Would be surprised by that link, and if Hearts were again able to be shopping in that market, just from surface level, he looks like someone who would cost 7 figures without doing too much digging. So, but yeah, I will see if I can find anything in that. But yeah, that's us, Tom. Thank you very much for that. That was hugely insightful. Wanted to get you on and kind of discuss that article, and it's pertinent that the work permit came through today for him. So yeah, that's exciting that we can look forward to on Sunday against Aberdeen. Be sure to check out Tom's article on Kabangu. It is in the description, YouTube description, and you can find it on heartstandard.co.uk. So basically just kind of what we talked about in written form. And yeah, once again, thank you very much everyone for watching and continuing to subscribe and engage. We'll be back later on in the week. Thank you very much and goodbye.